I like the birds in the background.
Yeah. Yeah, they woke me up this morning at 5.
The birds did? Yeah,
Beautiful
that's
way to
always an
wake
issue.
up.
So everybody, welcome to Friday with Friends. Here we are with my wonderful, wonderful friend, Megan Hicks. So I met Megan absolutely bonkers years ago. I can't even remember when it was. I mean, it was
Long time ago.
a very long time ago. Seriously long time
About
ago.
15 years.
Yeah, it must be. It must be. And it was at the Connecticut Storytelling Festival, and I was invited to do a little 10-minute story, which was wonderful. And I was really nervous because it was more at my beginning of my career than anything else, and this was kind of a big deal for me. And Megan and Jack were sitting there at a table, and Megan was making like these crafty things, and she was so sweet. She let me run through my story before my performance. Then we all went into the auditorium where it was held, and ever since then, I've held Megan very dear to my heart. So thanks for joining us, Megan.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure. It's a lot of fun.
It's going to be very silly, I hope.
Good.
So I'll put up your website so that if people want to look at your website while we're chit-chatting, then they can, because they can still listen to us even if we're not on the screen. It's all good. So you've been telling stories for a long time, right?
Yeah. I guess I knew that this was the direction I was going to take at the end of my identity crisis in 1987.
Wow.
So, yeah, I've been at it for a while.
That's so cool.
Full-time just since 2003.
And okay. As recent as that?
Yeah, as recent as that. I mean, I did it freelance during my whole tenure as a children's librarian, but that was on personal time and vacation time and, just time off. Yeah.
Yeah. That's and you're a musician.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I used to hide behind a guitar, and I did a little Travis picking back in the day when my fingers were still young people's fingers.
Right.
But no, my musicianship is at best rudimentary, and I haven't sung in years and years. So the muscle has kind of the singing muscle and my ear have gotten lazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so recently you posted, or somebody posted something about you or your album.
Yeah. When
you released 1,000 years ago.
When I was 20, I had ambitions of being a rich and famous singer-songwriter. And I got to record an album when I lived in Australia, and it had a tiny, tiny, minuscule release. Maybe, I don't know, I think 200 copies, but experts since then have said, no, there's no way they would have pressed anything less than 500 copies of anything. So maybe 500 copies at most were pressed and released in Australia and New Zealand, which is where I lived at the time. But just as we finished recording, my visa ran out and I had to come back to the United States. So there was absolutely no promotion. The occasional DJ would maybe play a cut on a radio program, but I think sales were probably zip. Oh, my mom bought 4 copies. I know that.
Because you've got 2 of them, right?
Yeah, because I have 2 of them now. And, it always embarrassed me because I would get home and, of course, overwhelmingly, the folk musicians at the time were men.
Right.
And always a man's opinion carried more weight than my friends' opinions did. And when somebody in my circle would hear one of my songs, they go, oh yeah, okay, 3 chords, yeah, da 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 da, and they would smoke me with their guitar riffs, and I realized, oh, I really can't play guitar, can I?
Yeah, but
so I sort of abdicated. I just sort of crawled away and made myself as inconspicuous as I could, even while I was dying to be right there at the microphone, So it was a tough relinquishment.
Yeah, because it sounds like you were bullied out of it.
It sound like what?
You were
Well,
bullied out of it.
overtly bullied. It's like I didn't know how to stand up for myself. I didn't know how to say, hey, this is me. I didn't know myself well enough to know that this voice was as valid as anybody else's was.
Right, absolutely.
These songs had their place too. I just, okay, yeah, it's probably minor. I'll just step away. And I think so many of us as girls, and then later on as women, have just taken a back seat because we've been patted on the head and patronized, and that's real cute, dear. Oh, how clever of you, you know?
Yeah.
Sort of damned with faint praise or with eye rolls.
Yeah.
And then taking a back seat.
And it hasn't changed that much, I don't think.
Well,
it's changed, but not that much. Not significantly, I don't think, personally.
Yeah.
Norris Spencer says hi, just so you know.
Oh, hi, Norris. I love you.
And Alan DeBay as well. I don't know if you know Alan.
Alan, what are you doing up this early? My God, man. Go back to bed.
So yeah, it's but that album since has had it's made a bit of a resurgence, and like there are folkies out there in Australia who are like, this is the Nirvana of folk music of the time. And that's so cool. It
delights me, it thrills me. It really does. And for the first time in decades, I have listened to it, like really listened to it. And it just kind of swooped me back into the studio after hours. And I'm getting teary now because I remember my friends just playing along with my voice and singing with their guitars. And that poetry that we all made together is absolutely priceless.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's something
Doug Rowe on guitar, he can make his guitar cry and hug you at the same time. And Orlando Agostino, I mean, I can still in my ear, I still have the muscle memory of what his guitar ringing sounded like. It was what
it felt like probably in your body when he was playing, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And now I have to wipe my tears. Excuse me.
That's all right. Yeah, I one of the things I used to do on a somewhat frequent level, one of my best friends, my very best friend back in the UK, Billy Craythorne, he and I did a lot of music together, and I really miss the playing music in my life. There was a son of this woman that I worked with, Chris Jedd. He would sometimes come around with a couple of his friends, and we'd jam out in the garage, in this very garage right here. And it was always, there's something, like you said, poetical about, just blending stuff together in a natural rhythm. It was, it's beautiful.
It's a great conversation without your left brain that involved.
Yes. Alan says he's working up. He starts at 6 a.m.
I see. All right, Alan. I hope you're caffeinated.
So you started in professionally. Well, I don't know. You started telling stories at libraries and all that kind of stuff, and now you travel all over the States telling your stories.
Well, yeah.
Well, you were until COVID.
I was. Yeah, I would say I wasn't one of the regulars. I never have been one of the regulars on the festival circuit, but I go wherever I'm invited, and like the ripple has gotten wider and wider. So, the Moonshell Festival was just canceled in Nebraska. I was really looking forward to that one because that's one that has been on my bucket list for a long
really?
time. Yeah.
Did they postpone it or did they cancel it?
They postponed. Well, no, they canceled it and asked me if I was available for 2021.
Yeah.
And I had to think about it for half a second. I said, yeah.
Yes. I know, right?
And I'm waiting to see about Kearney, Nebraska, because
Uh-huh.
that's in January. So I'm hoping to get to Kearney. And then what is it, the South Georgia or South Mountain Festival in Georgia? It was postponed. Like, I am booked for 2021, but 2020 was
Oh,
canceled.
so
They
you-
might just scoot everybody,
I hope so.
there. Yeah, but what I've realized as I've gotten older and creakier is that while I love performing more than anything almost, I hate airports.
Yeah, they're not
And
the
I
best
hate
places.
air travel. And it's just exhausting. So it's got to be a pretty cherry festival for me to push to get into it. And not all of them want me,
Yeah.
So,
which is sad because you are one of my favorite storytellers, without a question of a doubt. There's something that you bring that I don't think anybody else brings to storytelling.
What?
So there's this compassion that you bring, but there's this point of view that you carry with your stories, which is, it's just like, it's your Megan Hicks point of view of the stories. And when you've given me feedback on some of my stories, and it's kind of like, oh God, yes, of course. It's like, why didn't I think of that? Like my Monty Python female voices, which is, I do because I watched a lot of Monty Python growing up. But there's this compassion that you bring. There's this point of view that you bring, which is uniquely yours. There's this kindness in your stories that you bring out. I feel that it's for me, it's like listening with a really close friend or an aunt or a mother who just loves you unconditionally, and you're sharing this story, this like snippet, because all of the stories that you tell hold these snippets of wisdom. That's how it is for me anyway. I don't know, and I love that about you.
Well, thank you.
So yeah, I think you should be better known than you are, I believe. I mean, you're well known, but I think you should be like lights and fireworks and stuff.
I'm happy. I'm pretty satisfied, because people who love my work and see deep into it are people who I really respect.
Right.
And so, I could die a happy woman today.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah.
Frightening, but
I'm
nice.
not ready to die.
No, good. I'm glad you did that.
It happened. It's a life well lived. And I was noticing, we've been home for 10 weeks, going on 12 weeks. And I haven't really minded it that much.
Well, Jack, your partner, Jack, your husband, Jack, he's freaking
awesome.
awesome.
To be quarantined with, really.
I know.
And it's just given me a lot of time for reflection. And I realized that everything I ever really, really wanted, it's come to me.
Yeah.
My children are amazing adults whom I admire and whom I like, and they like me. So
that's a good thing.
That's a great thing. That's
I know, right? It's pretty huge, really, when you think about it. Because there's a lot of kids that are just like meh with their parents.
Yeah.
Don't see my parents. Go see my uncle. He's much better. Go see my aunt. They're much better.
I live in the middle of trees.
Yeah.
And all the time I lived in the west of the Mississippi, west of the Rocky Mountains, I just kind of longed for deciduousness,
Yeah.
And here I am in the middle of beech and maple and tulip poplar, and one of them fell on our house 5 years ago, but small price to pay.
Yeah, right.
All the chlorophyll.
And you have a nice performance space now too.
Well, we had a nice performance space before the tree fell on it, but it's a lot nicer now.
Right.
It's been redone. Yeah. So I am unspeakably rich and
Good.
famous,
Yeah,
with all the right people for all the right reasons.
that's good. And you're not too far from Philly. I mean, what is it, like 20
Half an
minutes?
hour. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
20 minutes from the airport and another 10 minutes into town.
yeah. It's great. I love it there.
Hmm.
I just so that people know, I visited Megan. I was fortunate enough back in December was it December or January? I
It was
can't.
December. It was
Yeah, I got on a train for an 9 hour, whatever it was. That
idiot.
was a long trip. That was a long trip, but it was
I'm
worth
on track.
every second. It was worth every second to get down and hang out with you. So yeah. So you got any? So you're a storyteller, but you also do all sorts of funky other stuff too.
Yeah.
You're an origami swami, self-anointed, appointed.
Yes, but I am not an origami expert. Okay.
Right.
I am an avid hobbyist,
Okay.
but I am not an expert. Okay. Let's just clear that air right now.
Okay. She's an expert, folks. No, she's not. She's she's an avid hobbyist, people. Not an expert. She makes some really cool stuff. And Jeff does too. Both of you.
Other people design the things that I just know how to read diagrams and what to do with my fingers. And it's a skill, and I worked hard for it, and I'm proud of it. But I am not an original origami creator. Okay.
But so somebody else made a condom wallet, origami condom wallet?
No, I turned somebody else's fold. My interpretation is my own.
Is unique and your own, you see?
Right. I bring my unique interpretation to origami. Like, okay, here is, whoops, damn that camera. I can't find it.
There you go. You got it. You got it. Let me give you the big screen. I'll give you the big screen.
This is years and years ago, I took a class in paper making and paper, I don't know, decorating.
Okay.
And so I had this huge sheet of paper that I had smeared walnut ink and India ink and then hosed down and mutilated. And it looked fantastic. It was just beautiful, but I didn't know what to do with it. And then I got a book by one of the most creative paper artists in the world named Haiti Kyle. It's called The Art of the Fold. And Haiti Kyle has this fishbone.
That is very cool.
This fishbone binding. So here's a book. It has a sewn binding. There's no glue in this. It's just folded and sewn with 3 stitches.
Whoa.
And it is just this sort of double accordion book that it makes me really happy playing with it.
I bet it does, because you could, in theory, hang on. In theory, you could have a continuous story. You can read it like a book, page by page by page.
Well,
right?
you can. Yes, you can.
But you can also pull it out.
And then have a panorama. And then you can look inside and see all the nice bits going on inside, too. So this could be the subtext on the inside, and then what we're telling people and what we really think.
Maybe it should be the other way around. I think there's too much hidden subtext that's been going on, and we need to switch that dynamic around.
Yeah, but it just
not
looks
wishing
like
to be political.
Japanese brush painting, and it's not. It's pretty cool.
I'm gonna have to show my friend Marek Bennett that, because he does these little mini comic books, and I think he would love that. That thing right there.
Put him in touch with me, and I'll put him in touch with The Art of the Fold. It's a great book. It's a great.
I'll send him the link to this thing, because he's probably not up yet. Maybe he is. He's a hard
Here's
worker.
another one of Haiti Kyle's.
All right, hang on. Let me put you back up there.
Okay. And it is, I've done this with some kind of decorative paper. I got it Blick or Paper Source. And it's all folded. There is no glue in this. It's 2 sheets of paper, 1 sheet of Yuzen done in accordion folds or a modified accordion fold, and then the decorative paper. And it's just a little card holder or a coupon holder. And again, it's all self-contained with no stitching, no gluing. It's just folded. That's what's so magic about origami to me.
Yeah.
I got some, I wonder if you can see this lovely print. the pasta print. I was at an art school called Penland School of Crafts a few years ago, and I was making books in the book studio, but there was a fabric screening class going on. And one of the women in the screening class asked me if I would be willing to barter one of my books, make a journal for her out of book cloth made with her pattern, with her.
Oh, nice. Right.
So I said, if I can have what's left over, I'll be happy to make you a book. So I made her a lovely little Coptic bound journal that folds flat, opens flat whenever you, at any page. So it's really easy to write or draw in. And then I got this lovely piece of pasta fabric. I turned it into book cloth, which is very foldable. It'll hold a crease, and made a little book, sewing book out of it. And I just keep this with my sewing kit, and it's got needles and thread and little baby scissors in there. I do practical stuff. A lot of people do decorative stuff like stars and flowers and make gorgeous arrangements. The late Yami Yamauchi did toys. And this is, whoops, I just took my caterpillar apart, but this is the front half of Yami's modular caterpillar. He's coming apart on me, but he's got this little accordion spring going on. It's really fun to play with. And so
that's presumably different sheets of paper that you've linked together somehow.
Yeah, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 little squares or rectangles of paper that are then interlocked, and they're stable enough if you don't play with them roughly like I just did. And Yanni, if any of you want to make toys out of paper, take this down and Google him. Yami, Y-A-M-I, Yamauchi, Y-A-M-A-U-C-H-I. All of his toys, they're fun. It's just making something to play with out of nothing. And that making something out of nothing is one of the most thrilling things. You know, just pulling something out of thin air. Like making a living out of storytelling. You're pulling your life out of thin air.
Norris likes your T-shirt, which you gave me a close-up of earlier.
My sister got this for me on a dare. She said, I dare you to wear it. And I do. And I forget I have it on. And at the line in the grocery store, when I'm out shopping, people kind of stare at me and I want to go, my eyes are up here. They're reading my T-shirt.
Yeah, there's a colleague of mine that was at a nightclub, and they were dancing and everything, and this drunk guy came over to her, and he's just staring at her chest. And he looked up at her and said, "What's your name?" And then started staring at her, and and she said, "Well, this is Darcy here, and this is..." I don't know. Your kind of girl.
Right, exactly. This is who you're interacting with.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So Darcy Tucker, which is why I said Darcy, because I just saw her name. In the 18th century, they called sewing books like that oh my gosh, I got the wrong glasses on for this. A
H-U-S-S-I-F-F?
Yeah, or a house, which was a housewife.
Darcy, thank you. I'm going to Google it.
All right.
Yeah. So cool. Thank you.
I like it when people make these comments and stuff. And anyway, so what was it? I'm sorry, I'm doing too many things at once. So do you have a story to share today, please? Thank you.
Well,
I did warn you.
You
Don't
did
say no.
You did warn me, and this is the next one I'm going to do for my granddaughter's Tegan TV.
Oh, excellent.
So I will practice on you. It's the first story that got me into this racket when I heard Joya Tempinelli tell it at maybe the second Winter Tales in Oklahoma City, sometime in the late 1980s. She was on the bill with Laura Sims. They were the
Nice.
first two storytellers I ever saw, and this is the very first story I ever saw performed. And it was as magic for me then as it was when I was 4 years old.
Do you mind if I keep my mic live and giggle in the background?
Go ahead.
Okay.
I don't think there's going to be much giggles, but
Okay. All right.
go ahead and stay live. Yes,
Okay.
please do. There was once a shoemaker who, through no fault of his own, had fallen upon hard times. Oh, he was an excellent craftsman. He was honest in all his dealings. He was a man of integrity. And yet, he could not make enough to get by. Finally, it came to where all he had left was leather enough for one more pair of shoes. So he said to his wife, well, I'll cut this pattern out tonight, and tomorrow morning I'll sew the shoes, and then we'll see what heaven brings us. But he was a good man. And that night he slept with a clear conscience. He slept well, untroubled by thoughts of what the morrow might bring. Well, next morning when the shoemaker woke up, he said his prayers, washed his hands, he went down to his workroom to set to work, and to his amazement, there on his workbench were the shoes he had cut out the night before, sewn, ready, done. He picked them up and examined them, and they were miracles of craftsmanship. The stitches were tiny and tight. They were perfect. Well, that day, a rich merchant came into the shop. The shoes pleased him so much. He paid more than the usual price for them. So now the shoemaker had money enough to buy leather for 2 pairs of shoes. Again, he cut these out at night, intending to sew them in the morning, but when he arose next day, they too were finished, perfect, ready to be sold, and people came and paid more than the usual price for these. Well, now he could buy leather for 4 pairs, and so it went. Whatever the shoemaker left cut out, ready to be sewn on his table at night, next morning it would be done, and it would be perfect. Well, it wasn't any time at all before the shoemaker and his wife were prospering once more. And one day, toward Christmas time, the shoemaker and his wife looked at each other, and she said, you know, husband, it is wrong. It is wrong for us to be here prospering off the work of someone else and not know whom to thank. He said, yes, you're right. Tonight, I think instead of sleeping, we should stay awake and watch and see who it is who does my work for me while we sleep. So that night, they stood behind a curtain that was hung across a corner of the room, and through a hole in the curtain, they peeked. Now, on the stroke of midnight, through the window of the workroom came these 2 tiny little men, just as bare as they could be. They looked at all the patterns cut out on the table. They nodded to each other and got to work. Their fingers flew, their hammers tap, 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 tap. They did not pause until all the work was done, inspected, and deemed perfect. And then out the window over the green, and they were gone. The shoemaker and his wife were amazed. She said, husband, oh, those poor little whites, they don't even have so much as a stitch to keep the cold off of them. Here's what we'll do. I'll make them each a suit of clothes. I'll make little shirts, little jackets, vests, trousers. I'll knit them scarves and hats and socks and mittens, and you make them each a sturdy little pair of boots. The shoemaker thought this was a good idea. And so when all the clothes were finished, that night, they laid them out on the shoemaker's work table. They stood behind the curtain. They watched. And on the stroke of midnight, through the window came those 2 little men. When they looked down and saw not work cut out for them to do, but clothes laid out for them to wear, oh, they were dressed in an instant, and didn't they look dapper? They doffed their hats, they bowed, they shook hands like proper gentlemen, they linked arms, and they danced all around the table, all around the room, out the window, over the green. They were gone. The shoemaker and his wife never saw them again. But from that day on, the two of them lived in prosperity and contentment all the rest of their good long days.
And the crowds went wild.
The crowds went wild.
I love that telling. And I like the words that you used about who is it that's doing all this work for us. It's wrong that we're taking their work and not rewarding them.
Uh-huh.
I think that's kind of, I don't know, everything strikes me as poignant these days.
I know it doesn't so much, does it?
It doesn't. It really doesn't. So, my friend Mo Reynolds, you know Mo, don't you?
Mo, yes, I am from Oklahoma.
There you go.
I go back. My great-grandfathers homesteaded, so I've got all the generations of bad karma going on there. Yeah.
Bad karma. Okay. Oh, Alan's clapping, and Barbara says hi, but she doesn't know you. She's in New Hampshire. I haven't met her yet. It drives me bonkers. But I say that every episode when she pops in. It's like, hi.
Oh, thank you, Alan.
So yeah, that's a great story. I love that story. So what else are you up to today?
Today, you were top on my list of things to do. I'm going to go to Target and get cat food.
Good.
Got to get gas in my car. This will be my second full fill up since mid-March.
Isn't it crazy?
Yeah, it is. It is. And I don't know, maybe pull some weeds out on the patio. It's all, hot time of the old town. Oh, I think maybe at noon, if I don't space out, I'll come back here to Facebook and hang out with my friend Kim Whitecamp, who hangs out with friends at noon every Friday.
So she's in your area? I didn't know that.
No. She's in Ohio.
That's what I thought. Okay, all right. Oh, so you're just going to hang out online? Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. This yarn shop, an absolutely gorgeous yarn shop.
Yeah.
And she just hangs out. It's kind of cool.
It is. I think she posted a picture on Instagram of all the yarn that she had.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure if that was like in a shop or at a house. I didn't want to ask because I didn't want to. I guess I didn't really want to know because it was kind of scary.
No,
but it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
Mo also homesteads.
Mo homesteads?
Yeah, she's got chickens and
homesteading Oklahoma roots as well. My mom is from Chickasha. Beautiful, Tillie. Thank you, Mo. We gotta connect or something.
You do. I think you two would get on like a house on fire.
My mom was born in Lincoln County. My dad was born in Locust Grove, and they met in Edmond. And my mother still lives in Edmond. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, thank you, Barbara. Yeah, I know. That's what I love about the Shoemaker and the Elves is that nobody becomes king, nobody gets married, and they don't live happily ever after. They live in prosperity and contentment for the rest of their days.
Off the backs of the elves.
But also, the elves only sewed what was already cut out.
It's true.
The shoemaker did what he could do.
Right.
And he didn't just sit back and wait for the work to be done. He did his part, and they came in, and yeah.
I love the fact that Norris sometimes calls you up to hear a story.
Well, sometimes I call Norris up to hear a story because there's no better critic, coach in the world. I swear.
Really?
I will be working on a story, and you know how when a story is new out of your mouth, you get cramps under your tongue. Do you do that?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I get really tense in my shoulders.
You go for a walk, and it just feels like getting yanked out of you. So at one point, I'll feel like I know the bones of the story well enough that I can run it past Norris and see if she thinks the skeletal structure, see what weaknesses she might be able to find. And she's dead on all the time. And So I'll tell the story and she'll give me comments and I'll be exhausted and ready to say, well, thank you so much. I'll talk to you later. And she'll say, tell it again.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and she does it in such a voice that you don't argue. So, so you tell it again. And it's almost like that is the mordant that fixes the die.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that.
It's
Antonio was staying here, and we were swapping stories with each other, and he was like, "Oh, hang on, like do this," and I was like, "Okay," you know. So he said, "So tell it again," and I was like, "Oh, all right," and it really does. It kind of it puts it in place, and it stays there.
Yeah.
And I think that if you don't do that, sometimes it'll be like gone.
Yeah, you'll go, wait, what was that brilliant suggestion?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
Which is
like,
why we should really record everything that we do so that we can play it back, because
there's no. I'm having such a hard time with this Zoom.
Yeah, I am too.
Event thing. I mean, I love it that people are doing it. I do, and I love it that people are figuring out how to turn this disaster into, we got to make a living somehow,
Right.
So let's adapt. We got to adapt or die. But I feel like I'm done adapting. I don't want to adapt. Yeah. I want live audiences. This is great. You and me together. This is fine.
I like this a lot. Yeah.
Or maybe a screen full of 9 or 10 faces of people who aren't on their phones playing Scrabble.
Right.
Which I confess I'm guilty of.
I see yesterday at like 2:00 in the afternoon, I was just kind of like, I'm staring at my computer monitor upstairs in the office. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, I'm done. And I look at my phone and I'm just like, you're staying there. And it's like, I walked out and I just made myself a cup of tea and I sat down outside and, with Mo the dog, and it was just brilliant. It was just like no screen.
I do a lot of staring into space.
Yes, I do that too. That's usually when I'm looking at the monitor and I'm like, all right, I need a break. Oh, dear. So you're staying well over this time?
We are.
Good.
Yeah, we've been healthy.
Has Jack been making anything much?
Oh, my word, you can't believe it. Yeah. He's the productive one of this couple, let me tell you. He has made 2 little mid-century birdhouses, bird feeders.
They're to go with your mid-century house.
The slopey roof and the cantilever stuff. Well, he made 2 little rhyming bird feeders. One's in the back, one's in the front. We can see them when we're having coffee or when we're getting ready for bed or waking up first thing in the morning. And we have had more fun watching the squirrels try to bust in.
Oh, really?
He's got baffles up, he's got barriers up, and just watching the squirrels, climb a nearby tree and scratch their heads. And then we turn around and before you know it, there's a squirrel in the damn bird feeder.
No way.
But it's tons of fun. So he's made the bird feeders. He's made an absolutely stunning table out of a 10-foot long piece of safety glass. It's 3/4 of an inch.
Oh, wow.
Weighs about 150 pounds. And it looks like it's just integral to the house. He's cleaning out the garage and putting up storage up there. What else is he doing? At his shop, when he goes to his shop, he's working on this inflated iron or steel pillow that has buttons on it, and it's like that footstool that we have that looks like Naugahyde, and you pick it up and it clangs. Yeah, it's that. It's an inflated piece of steel. It's a
wow
balloon. God, what else?
I love his stuff. I really do.
Making. I think they're going to start back to work maybe next week, like going on sites and actually making sawdust on site. But
is it just lifted or has he just waited a little bit longer?
It's just lifting.
Yeah. Okay.
It's today. It's just lifting some today.
Okay. I heard his voice in the background. Today.
Editorializing. Jack, what have I not mentioned that you have made? He doesn't.
Bring Jack in. Let's let everybody
Jack,
see Jack.
I want you in here.
Yeah. Come on in, Jack.
I'll make room for you on the chair.
Because there are some people that know you guys.
Yeah.
Like myself.
Yeah.
And like Norris, I'm assuming, and Pete and Darcy.
Darcy, yeah.
Darcy, sorry.
You're okay.
But there are other people like Mo who may not have met Jack. And I have to say, I'm not brown nosing here, as my mother would say. Jack is a freaking awesome person. He's as awesome as Megan, and Megan's pretty freaking awesome. I think you're the best couple I've ever met.
Oh. All right.
And the cutest.
Yeah.
So it's good to see you both. And it's good to hear that you're keeping yourselves busy and you haven't eaten each other yet.
Not yet. We're still married.
I know. Oh, hang on. Oh, okay. So we got a whole bunch of hijacks.
Darcy, Norris, yeah.
Alan, he says it too.
Alan.
Hey, Alan.
And Mo says, I've narrowed my screen time down to very few things, and this is one of them. So I'm glad to hear that. It makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside.
I look forward to knowing you better.
Yeah, you should. You two have got to meet because she is a barrel of laughs. She is. I mean, and not in the way that I might be, but she's just like this. She's like a ray of sunshine. She is like this flower that is radiant and bright and happy and all that kind of stuff. And I can just see the two of you having the best time. I would just sit and watch the two of you and would absorb all that energy that you would give off because it would be phenomenal. Anyway, I won't take up any more of your time. You've been absolutely marvelous. Thanks for sharing a story. Jack, good to see your face. Megan, good to see yours and your t-shirts.
Show us your face before you log us off.
Show my face?
Yes.
Here it is.
There we go.
Mwah. To both of you. Take care. Everyone, thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week for another Friday with Friends. Check out Megan's website. And have you got an Etsy site or something like that where you can get your stuff?
Merch dog at Etsy, but there's not much there.
Okay, and what about Jack's stuff? Is that Jack's stuff as well?
Jack doesn't sell his stuff on Etsy.
No.
Okay. All right.
We're home.
So don't look for their stuff that they sell because they can't sell it because they're crap at that kind of stuff. But go to Megan's website and check out her CDs because they were a family favorite of ours for the longest time. My daughter still treasures those groundhog stories. And I shared your Civil War stories with a couple of teachers at elementary school who do social studies because they're so good. So they're very, very worthwhile visiting and listening to. See you all next week. Megan, Jack, I hope to see you both soon.
See you, Simon. Yeah.
Bye. Thanks everyone for being here. Take care of yourselves. Look after yourselves and look after everybody else around you too.